mind of having more abortions.
What's wrong with that?
Excuse me.
Get the message out of here. You like that?
Rick!
No.
Stop.
I don't care. I'm speaking for everybody around here. Put all this money together, trying to beautify our neighborhood.
Now, from being hit with chocolate milk, told abortion isn't an issue because no man would have sex with these women, even having a union tell them. These are some of the things people with the new abortion caravan have had to put up with. Stephanie Gray with the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform has been traveling with the caravan from Vancouver, joins us in Toronto now. Stephanie, before we get into the ordeal, fill us in on what the caravan is and what you're trying to accomplish.
So this is a cross-country tour where we are taking the old abortion caravan from 1970, the sacred cow of Canada's abortion rights movement, and we are redeeming it. They used it to advance a woman's right to abortion, and we are retracing their steps to ensure that we end the killing of preborn children in our lifetime. And this is the beginning of an 18-year campaign to make sure abortion becomes unthinkable in our country.
An 18-year campaign?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so you're trying to change hearts and minds here, not change laws, if you're going by 18 years.
Actually, we do believe in changing laws, and we think that if we are as successful as we aim to be in changing hearts and minds, that we will change laws. But we recognize that often to change public policy, you first need to change public opinion. Okay.
Now, you've been met with protests, some of them from organized labor. When did that start? Why are they doing this? What are they doing?
Good question. Well, the Canadian Auto Workers Union has been protesting us in all our stops, beginning in Manitoba all the way through here to Ontario. And I realize that conceptions sometimes happen in cars, but until abortions start happening in cars, I don't know why they are involving themselves in this debate, especially because they should be focused on workplace matters, and a lot of their forced membership does not agree with them. But tragically, yeah, they're out there, they're protesting us. They had a big rally in London, and one of their speakers...
Yeah, and we're just seeing some visual now. Now, is this a Canadian Auto Workers person or Occupy London? What are they doing? This is London, Ontario, attacking your truck.
That's right. She was identified as speaking for Occupy London, but at the Canadian Auto Workers Union rally in London, she jumped onto our truck as a bunch of her fellow protesters blocked it so it couldn't move forward. And she was scraping the side of the truck with a hanger, and she even assaulted one of our staff members. Okay, so, you know, these are peaceful people. Have you talked to any auto workers? Have you heard from them, people saying they're not happy that the union dues are going to this? Oh, yes. I saw a post on Facebook. Someone was expressing great disappointment that their union was involved in protesting us. I also spoke to a couple people when we were in Winnipeg who also were unhappy with what their union was doing. So, yeah, this is a growing concern for sure. Now, I believe this happened in London. I've got to ask you, you're a young woman, you've been taught the feminist mantra just by living in our culture and the time period that you have lived through feminism. So tell me, how did it feel to hear about so-called feminists yelling, abortion's a non-issue for you girls because no man would have sex with you? Yeah, you know, it just shows what a lack of dignity and respect that these women and men who are protesting us have. No respect for the other and no respect for themselves. I mean, as soon as I arrived and I started taking photos, they were stripping in front of me. I mean, there were women walking around topless. So it's very sad, a sad reflection of where our culture is at and where the radical feminist movement is at. They're not, to me, true feminists at all. Okay, now you guys, part of what your caravan is doing, you are carrying very graphic abortion images. Now, yes. Correct? Now, I've told you before, I'm not a fan of the graphic images, but it is a free speech issue. I would just take a different tactic, that's all. But I want to ask you this is why I bring it up. The cigarette pack that uses graphic images to warn mothers about smoking. Do we have that image? Are we able to show that now? Because two things. Why is it a baby when they want women to stop smoking, but a fetus with no rights when it comes to an abortion? And two, why are these graphic images acceptable, but yours aren't? Great questions. I mean, that's our point, is we know graphic images work because the government has mandated they be on cigarette packages, and other countries are following in Canada's footsteps because of the power of images. And so it is a walking contradiction that in our country, the government can mandate there be warnings about the dangers of smoking to preborn children, yet that same government will fund the direct intentional killing of preborn children through abortion. And so that's why we say injustice that's invisible inevitably becomes tolerable, but injustice that is made visible inevitably becomes intolerable. I noticed that you were calling, and that's very good phrase, by the way, I don't have to remember that,
but I noticed you were calling them preborn children. You can just call them babies, because the government does when they put it on the side of a cigarette pack, or when Dalton McGuinty and his government in Ontario talk about lecturing women about not drinking while pregnant because it can harm the baby. They don't say it could harm the fetus or the preborn child. They said this will harm your baby, don't do it.
Well, language is very important, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think, yes, it's absolutely accurate to use the language of baby. Preborn child is accurate as well as saying toddler to refer to, an age range. But it's very important that we use language that humanizes the preborn child, because the language currently being used by abortion advocates is designed to cover up the dignity and the beauty of that life and instead try to mask the ugliness of abortion.
Yeah, that's definitely what they're trying to do, because I've been around a lot of pregnant women. None of them have ever said, come see my ultrasound pictures of my fetus.
Right. And that it goes to show when we want that child, we consider it a baby. But when we don't want that child, we name it, a fetus or an embryo. And what an individual is should not be based on our feelings towards that individual. But rather, if we want to know what something is, we just ask what its parents are. And as long as we're not going to reopen the debate about the personhood of women or open a debate about the personhood of men, there is no reason to call into question the personhood of preborn babies, preborn children.
All right. Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
And
Brian.
I'm sure we will have more coverage of the Caravan in days to come. They arrive in Ottawa shortly. Email me your thoughts on all of this. Byline@sunmedia.ca.